This is a presentation of Blakesley Sports Media. Welcome to BSM Live. Here's your host, Stephen Blakesley.
Well, we want to welcome you along here to episode number 11 of Blakesley Sports Media Live. And thanks to everybody who is tuning in so far to this, our 11th episode of this outstanding show. I've been really lucky to have so many cool people on the program, and that continues today with our interview with the purveyor of driven chassis, Jake Hagopian, on the program today. So really looking forward to sharing this interview with you. It's a little bit of an in-depth interview. It's probably the longest interview that we've aired here on Blakesley Sports Media Live. So I'm excited to share that with you. We go very in-depth on the state of micro sprint racing, dirt racing in California as a whole, and how we think the coronavirus and the COVID-19 epidemic or pandemic might be affecting the dirt track racing world. So I'm really excited to share this one with you. It's a pretty in-depth interview, and we'll be coming up with that here in just a few moments on Blakesley Sports Media Live. As always, please comment with where you're tuning in from here on Blakesley Sports Media Live, and let us know, because it's been so fun to see people from all around the world tuning into this program. And so it's always been a lot of fun for me to be able to give shout outs to people. We've had people from Washington and Colorado and North Carolina and everywhere in between. So again, give us a comment. Let us know where you're tuning in from as we get people to start to log on here to Blakesley Sports Media Live. A reminder, if you miss an episode, you can go to BlakesleySportsMedia.com. You can click the live button at the top of the website. It's a menu item. And we have links to all the podcasting services and places you can view it on both YouTube and here on Facebook. So if you miss an episode live, you're not out of luck, because we will be posting these episodes. We post by about 8 p.m. So if you have iTunes or Spotify, Google Play Music, there's about a dozen different places where we put the podcast. I even have iHeartRadio on there, which is really cool to have my podcast on the same place where Ron Burgundy's podcast is. That's kind of cool, right? So big hello to Brian Spencer, Ethan Lamfrey, Bob Blakesley, Evan Sanders, Chris McGinnis. Thank you guys for tuning in. And it's time now to jump into our first segment here on Blakesley Sports Media Live. It's time for our winner circle segment. And our first winner we want to talk about is the winner of last Thursday's Junior Late Model Esports Series. And that was Austin Edwards picking up the victory in the Junior Late Model Esports. And those events are going to air live at 4 p.m. every Thursday. And for Edwards, of course, he won the second ever Junior Late Model race back in 2016, and now he gets the first ever win in the Junior Late Model Esports Series. So happy for Austin Edwards to pick up that victory. And again, it's live on Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific on the Global Sim Racing. It's GSRC on YouTube. And they had over 30 cars, 33 junior late model drivers in late model stock cars. And one of the things they've been doing on the Madera Speedway YouTube is they are posting 60 episodes in 60 days. There have been a total of 84 episodes of Madera Racing on MAV TV over the 5 seasons that we've been a part of it. The first 60 of them, the first 4 seasons, are being aired day after day, one at a time at noon Pacific every day at Short Track Racing TV on YouTube. And the one they posted today is mega cool. It's a historic one. It was the first ever junior late model race from 2016. And we have a couple clips from that broadcast with some big names, and we're going to play that for you right now. Well, it's not a race at Lone Martin Madera Speedway without a Herzog in it. And this guy, Austin Herzog, the 13-year-old, leads after the first segment of the junior late models. How exciting is this? How do you feel being in the lead so far?
It's amazing to come out here to Madera and drive the junior late model class for the first time, and to get first for the first segment of the 25 laps.
Any changes you want to make to the car in the second 25?
No, the car is perfect right now. When the tires get hot, it turns pretty good.
What does it mean to you, being a young driver like yourself, to be in a series like this?
It means a lot. I mean, I'm glad I get to be a part of this whole new upcoming group of kids that get to make an impact on the racing's future.
Good luck in the second 25.
Thank you.
Ryan the Rhino Vargas, top 5 so far here in Madera. Well, they call him the first place ace. Austin Edwards, 11 years old, coming up here. He's running the trucks before, now he's in a junior late model and made his way back to the front. You're in the top 5 now. Tell us about the car and how your race went.
Well, we went into the first practice and the throttle stuck. We went into qualifying, the steering wheel came off. But now we finally got the car ready to go, and we're in the top 3, and we're just hoping that it'll be good next time.
So that was a look at the halfway interviews from the junior late model debut race back in the spring of 2016. Some big names right there. We just talked about Austin Edwards, who won the inaugural junior late model esports race on Thursday. That was him at the end of that. The other interview, Ryan Vargas, who is now racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And before that, the 2019 Nut Up Pro Late Model champion, Austin Herzog, who went on to win that main event back in 2016. So talk about some great young up-and-coming drivers. And if you want to view the full broadcast of the inaugural Junior Late Model Series event, the 5150 Junior Late Models, you can go to Short Track TV on YouTube, and they are uploading new episodes from the last 4 seasons of Madera Racing on MAV TV every single day. So I encourage you guys to tune into that. Really quickly, before we go into our interview with Jake Hagopian, there was something kind of cool that was posted on the Facebook for NBC Sports. And I know we talk a lot about short track racing, but I thought this was pretty cool. So we have the past, the present, and the future of NASCAR. And they were asking, if you were going to make a dream team, who would you pick from this group of drivers? You get 1 per level. And everybody was having a lot of trouble with that group up there at the top, the past group. For me, of course, Jeff Gordon was my all-time favorite driver right about when I was growing up in the 90s. When I go to the present group, it's really hard to separate the dominance of Jimmy Johnson from how he's performing now. And so I immediately kind of grabbed onto Kyle Busch. And I thought, Kyle Busch would be the guy I'd want to have, but, hard to turn down the 48 car, right? So that one gets a little bit difficult as well. And then when you get the future group, my initial response was I was surprised that William Byron did not make that group and that Alex Bowman did. And I was reminded, well, Bowman's got a couple of wins. But I think if it was up to me, I'd probably go Gordon, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott for my 3. And feel free to comment with who you guys would select for your dream team. Just something kind of fun to talk about here with a lack of short track racing going on. And really, I think any combination of these drivers would be successful. And you can see why it's so hard for teams like Penske and Hendrick and Gibbs and Roush and, to figure out which drivers they want to have, because any combination of this could work. You just have to find a combination that works well with your crew chief, with their teammates, and hit on something. But of course, what's noticeable on this group, 4 Hendrick drivers. So Hendrick has done pretty well over the years, but I just thought that was kind of cool. So again, I would go Jeff Gordon, Kyle Busch, and Chase Elliott for my 3, but a pretty good argument could be made for a whole lot of different combinations. Of course, Denny Hamlin, Jimmy Johnson, Alex Bowman. There is a lot of talent on there. Tyler Reddick, someone I've had on my previous podcast in the past. Also, Alex Bowman was on my previous podcast as well. So, are drivers that I have a lot of respect for. So now we're going to go into our deep dive, our in-depth interview with Jake Hagopian, the purveyor of driven chassis. And he has a lot of interesting insights of how he thinks dirt racing in different parts of the state is going to handle the coronavirus and how it's going to impact the race teams and the economy. And that's what we're going to play for you right now here on Blakesley Sports Media Live. Phone with Jake Hagopian, the owner of Driven Chassis and the 2018 Hoosier Tire California Speedway champion. And Jake, thanks for coming on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I wanted to ask you right off the top, how has your company been affected by the coronavirus so far?
You could definitely see a lapse in sales. February was a big month. I think people are really excited about racing, and with that, you're trying to get prepared for what seemed to be a really exciting season, forthcoming for all of motorsports, especially dirt track racing. So, we were gearing up, and then all of a sudden we just kind of, walked off a sheer cliff. So, fortunately we still have, quite a few cars on order to build. I've got my welders welding from home just to kind of keep things safe. I'm manning the store, shipping parts that, that do come across the table. So fortunately our website is active, and, we do have some customers calling because, when this thing lifts, what I'm hoping is everybody's excited to go back to racing, and, we can pick up where we left off.
So you interact with a large number of companies in the motorsports world on kind of a daily basis. What is your sense of how things are going for the whole motorsports world and with some of the companies that you deal with every day?
There is a little bit of unnerving, uneasiness, I guess you could say. We just really don't know what's going on. So it seems to be the consensus. Everybody's trying to do pretty much what I feel like we're doing is trying to keep, the steady flow of business happening, and really, for the lack of a better term, not to get caught with your pants down, when this thing lifts. Building chassis, there's a lot of time and there's a process involved. And so, shutting down per se is going to really put us in a bad spot. So fortunately, we haven't had any car orders canceled. We are having a few issues with certain suppliers in certain states where they're not able to keep producing, or they're dealing with a supplier that isn't producing. So that does kind of throw a wrench in things, but at the same time, I think everybody's trying to mind their P's and Q's and, make sure the cash flow stays steady, and you don't put yourself in a bad spot, and get yourself too far gone as far as, the flow of business is concerned. Really, sales have tapered off, rightfully so. People have had all winter long to get their race cars done. We ran one time, and here we are back into an off season.
So we do have a lot of big events on the horizon, hopefully, including the California Speed Week, the Mark Hagopian Memorial, Clay Cup, High Banks Hustle, things like that. As a small business owner yourself, and you're seeing the impact that the virus is having on your bottom line, what do you think the budgets are going to look like for some of the teams and the racers? Do you think that the sport is going to be able to come out of this and still have some really big turnouts at these events?
I lay in bed at night thinking about this very thing. Racing it's a hobby, and, people use their disposable incomes, especially in the microsprint world. So I guess, if you were to really look at how people interact, and, where the sport is strong in certain areas, like here in Central California, that's really agricultural driven. It might be easy to say that our contingent has a lot to do with the agricultural industry. So, I grew up farming, and I grew up on a ranch, and when the economy was good, farming was normally bad. And when farming was good, the economy was normally bad. So, if things within our economy in the U.S. kind of taper off, normally ag picks up. So, I'm hoping that farmers still have their disposable incomes. We can cross-contaminate that comparison to the Bay Area, where, the economy's been good, and there's a lot of industrial technology-driven businesses in the Bay Area in California. And, I don't know how that's going to affect our contingent in the Bay Area. Oil is down, so you can compare that to businesses in Oklahoma that really heavily rely on the oil industry. And so that could be affecting their business. So there's so many different variables, and the way people's disposable incomes come about, we don't know. We can lay in bed at night wondering and hoping, but, the reality is all of us are in uncharted waters here, and it is scary, but at the same time, it's probably going to be feast or famine for a lot of us.
So I did want to talk to you about micro sprint racing as a whole, not just about the coronavirus. For race fans that maybe haven't experienced micros, what can you tell those fans about what makes this racing so special and why you've dedicated your life to being a part of this sport?
In the last 10 years with the era of social media, I think micro sprint racing has really got a good rapport, and the value and the intensity of the racing has been showcased. And so, every year you see more of these $5,000, $10,000 to win shows coming about. And what basically that boils down to is there's a lot of incentive value in micro sprint racing, is where it's action packed. Nothing in racing is affordable anymore, but at the same time, it can be cost effective. Sprint car and midget racing, there is a level of risk involved in those vehicles. And so in micro sprint racing, you could be 12 years old, you could be 45 years old, you could be 60 years old, and nothing's stopping you from going out there and buying a micro sprint and going and having a good time. So I think we really have a really value incentive sport here, and the barriers to entry are relatively open compared to the midget and the sprint car world, where that really takes a huge commitment to put together a sprint car operation or to put together a midget operation. So for most people that are looking to move their kids up the ladder in the racing world, it's become apparent that micro sprints are where it's at. I mean, for instance, Christopher Bell, look at where he's at, and his whole racing career was derived around a micro sprint racing in Oklahoma. So we can go down the list: Giovanni Scelzi, Corey Elias, and we can go on and talk about sprint car and midget drivers that are having huge amounts of success at the top tier of the sport, and they all come from micro sprint racing. So we can kind of see that the future going forward. I think things are going to change a little bit as far as maybe the outlaw kart world had a lot of emphasis on the success rate that drivers from the outlaw kart world were having going into midgets and going into sprint cars and getting to that ultimate TRD program. I think that you might see people put more emphasis into micro sprints for that same ultimate goal, based on the fact that a micro sprint is relatively a scaled down sprint car or midget, and there's a lot to be learned from driving a micro sprint.
Yeah, I think I agree with you a lot, and it's so awesome to see the type of people that have been drawn to the micros. People like the Pinellas, the Selzies, even people like Dave Bird from the NASCAR ranks, or someone like me from the pavement world, that have just been instantly attracted to this form of racing. So I couldn't agree with you more. We all know that your company has a lot of up and coming drivers sort of within your fold, such as Corey Day and Jade Abadizian and drivers such as that. But who are some drivers maybe on the micro sprint side that folks might not know about that you think might be the next one to come up through the ranks and make a big impact?
It's really hard to say who can or can't or what, and basically it's timing. If you're gonna make it to that next level, but there's so many good drivers all over the country. Let's just talk about people that are never going to get that opportunity, that some of these kids are having more of an opportunity because they can showcase themselves on iRacing, on the weekdays, and then on track on the weekends. And then everybody gets to hear about it on social media come Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So, the kids nowadays, they have the world at their fingertips to be able to showcase their talents, their personalities, their values. And so, people that are older in the sport that could have made it, the Frank Floods of the world, the Michael Facenos of the world, people that have ultimate amount of talents, Joe B's, it's hard to say who's out there, because really what it boils down to is how you present yourself. I think that any racer in the whole country that dedicates themselves to the sport and really cares about the craft and has a passion for it is capable of racing at the next level. So what it ultimately comes down to is if you're somebody out there that thinks you have the talent, what's keeping somebody from getting to the next level and not getting there is, you know, their tenacity and their core values and how they present themselves to the powers that be. And, you know, those are the things that are going to take you to the next level. That's my personal opinion.
How critical do you think it is to keep the Super 600 class affordable so those young drivers can get to that level? Or do you think that the growth on the restricted side of things has been strong enough that we're still able to accommodate most of the teams out there?
That's a good question. It's no secret that the Super 600 class, you know, is pushing the envelope of affordability. But at the same time, it's still the 55 lap feature at the Tulsa Shootout. It still pays $10,000 to win at the High Banks Hustle, and it's the only class. The Super 600 class is, in my opinion, you know, the top tier of the micro sprint ranks. And it's not to put the non-wing class aside or the restricted class aside, but what you have there is you have the Jobies, the Frank Floods, the Michael Facenos of the world who have been doing this for going on 15, 20 years and cutting their teeth and getting better and better and better. And so what happens is the envelope keeps getting pushed. And inside of that envelope is, you know, checkbooks and dollar bills for people to try to beat those guys. And so, you know, in the restricted class, it's great that we have the restricted class because it gives somebody the opportunity to decide, am I gonna take my kid to the next level by going into the Super 600 class and trying to make a splash, or am I gonna get into the Super 600 class and am I gonna spend some time here and am I gonna try to cut my teeth and sharpen my axe and, you know, take enough time to beat these guys and to beat them on a regular basis. And the Super 600 class is like the World of Outlaws. It's like Formula One. You have teams that just, they have the experience and they have the tenure. And like I tell people all the time, nobody started winning overnight. Nobody was gifted the golden goose egg and told they were going to be a winner. You know, people with blood, sweat, and the tears to have the success that Frank Flood has, that Joby has, that Michael has. And I'm leaving so many people off the table, but when I think about, you know, the ultimate players in our sport, those guys come to mind. And, you know, Chris Andrews, the Scott Sawyers, I mean, there's just so many names, and those guys just didn't get on the scene for a couple of years and then leave. I think Christopher Bell is about the only guy that we could say has been able to do that. So yeah, the 600 class, Super 600 class can be, you know, there can be some big budgets in that class, but at the same time, you know, it shows the strength of the sport and the amount of knowledge and the amount of depth that's involved in that class. So I think it's a core part of the sport.
So before we let you go, we got to talk about you as the driver now. We've been talking about the industry, but we'd be remiss to not talk about your driving. And the biggest thing I see on your horizon is this 360 sprint car program. Can you tell us more about how that came about and what it means to you to have that opportunity?
I mean, if you knew me well enough, you'd probably heard me over the last 10 years say I'm just not going to be a sprint car guy. You know, that was a unrealized dream, you know, that I kind of got over probably about 5 or 6 years ago, you know, once I got into the industry as a business individual. And so, you know, it's no secret, sprint cars can be dangerous. Sprint cars cost a lot of money. And, you know, my focus right now is my business, and that's driven and D1 chassis. And so for me to be focused on my business, I need to be at the micro sprint races. So, you know, going sprint car racing just wasn't an option. But at the same time, there was always like, oh, what if, you know, you go watch a sprint car race and you sit there and you see everybody that you were racing with last year or the year before that, and you see them either have success or fail miserably. And so you sit there and go, man, you know, I think I could do it like that guy, but I hope I'm not that guy either. You know, so there was a conversation being had at a dinner with with HP Maya, and HP is, somebody that I've known for the better part of the last decade. He's involved with Jason Myers. He works for Myers Constructors, which is Jason Myers' construction business that he enacted after he got off the road, off the World of Outlaw Tour. And so HP's owned a sprint car for the past couple of years, and Carson Macedo and Casey Kane, HP's son Ethan drove. Jason's driven it quite a bit. And so I was just talking to HP, and I said, hey, who's driving your car next year? And he said, well, I figured you'd drive it. And I kind of got caught in my tracks. And I said, whoa, man. I said, I wasn't asking for a ride. I was just curious what was going on. And he goes, no. He goes, me and Jason have been talking, and Ronnie Day, which is Corey Day's dad, they were kind of all talking behind closed doors without my knowledge, and they thought it would be cool to throw me in the car and see what happens. And so, my first response is, well, I better ask my wife and see if it's okay. But,
yep.
She's been great about it because, here we are. Like I said, I've been saying for the last 10 years that I'm not going sprint car racing. So, what was going to be, hey, let's try it, turned into, Jason calling me and saying, hey, we could do, this race, we could do Trophy Cup, we could do this. And I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. So we ran about a half dozen shows at the end of last year, and, everything went better than I expected, but, left us with wanting a little bit more. And so we're going to run about a dozen shows this year and just have fun. On the weekends, we're not running the 600 stuff with Corey and Cody. We're gonna go run the sprint car, and we're gonna run Hanford. We're gonna try Tulare, a couple shows at Watsonville. I think we're gonna try to hit a couple of the sprint car challenge tour races, and just have some fun and see what happens. It'd be great to go win a trophy dash. It'd be great to win a main event, but we're a long ways from that at the same time. So we're just gonna have fun.
Well, I really appreciate you taking some time to talk with us and all your insight, because you can look at this sport from so many different angles. And good luck with everything in 2020. And I'm sure you agree that we all can't wait to get back to the racetrack.
For sure. I think all of us want to get there, and I hope that there's going to be B mains in every class at every track across the country when this thing lifts.
Well, thank you for coming on, and stay safe out there, buddy.
Hey, you too. Thank you.
Well, again, I want to thank Jake Hagopian for coming on our program and taking that deep dive with us. That's definitely the longest interview that we had, but probably one of the most insightful that we've had as well. I think the one thing that Jake Hagopian, he was really talking about the different industries, different parts of the state, and how he thinks it's going to impact their racing budgets. I think the one thing that I was bringing up a few weeks ago is that it seems like when the economy gets strong, the trickle down to short track racing takes a year or two as drivers build cars and save up money for race cars. Well, we were just hitting that crescendo, in my opinion, about 2 or 3 years into Trump as the president and all the economic growth that we had had. So the cars are on the ground. And so if what Hagopian is saying ends up being true, that a lot of the folks in the agriculture world are able to survive this, thrive through it, and come out with some spending money, the cars are on the ground, hopefully. And so hopefully we can get these cars to the racetracks. That's the biggest thing right now. But that's just my opinion. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about where we're headed in the motorsports world after this pandemic is over. So again, want to thank you all for tuning in to episode number 11 of Blakesley Sports Media Live. Tomorrow night on the All-American Speedway Facebook, we're going to be playing the $10,000 to win JM Environmental 100 for the NASCAR late models, plus all the other racing that happened. It's going to be at 7 o'clock tomorrow night on the All-American Speedway Facebook. And we talked about already, on Thursday nights, the Junior Late Model eSports Series, part of the Madera Speedway Junior Late Model program, Rod Wortham, and everybody that's organized that for iRacing. It'll be at 4 o'clock Pacific on Thursday on the Global Sim Racing YouTube or Facebook, so you can look that up. The inaugural race had 33 cars, so we're expecting another really good turnout on Thursday. And of course, all kinds of great iRacing stuff going on throughout the weekend. I hope everybody is being safe out there in the motorsports world, and I hope we can go back to racing very soon. If you ever miss an episode of our program, remember you can go to BlakesleySportsMedia.com, and we have our episodes on demand on every podcasting platform, also YouTube and right here on Facebook. Everybody stay safe out there, and we'll see you at the races.